Welcome to Resource Thursday with Invarosoft. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT service business, whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my guest. We have none other than Jamie Warner over at Invarosoft. Jamie, how are you today?
Very good. Thanks for having me, Paco. Great to be here.
We're happy to have you. Rick will not be in today. He actually is helping with some family matters. His daughter is taking her first driving test, so we wish her luck and kind of go from there. But Jamie, before we go into talk about Invarosoft and everything that your product and services have to offer, I would like to talk about one of my favorite things, and that is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged is going to be this September 16th to the 18th at the Hilton Rosemont Chicago O'Hare. And rather than go through my normal spiel, I like to go ahead and play this quick video that our good friend, who is also our master of ceremonies and our host for this year's TechCon Unplugged, Marvin B. So here we go. All right. So head over to techconunplugged.com for your tickets. Tickets are $299 this year. However, we have worked out some partnerships with our vendors, so you should have some discount codes over there. We've also reached some agreements with several Facebook groups. So if you're part of a Facebook group, they should have a discount code. And if your favorite Facebook group doesn't have that discount code, have them reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to work out with them. We understand the times going on right now, so we want to be conscious of that for everyone and just have a great event. It'll be an intimate event, and we have a lot more coming of updates in the next few weeks. So techconunplugged.com. All right, Jamie, appreciate you sitting through that 1 minute commercial, but I want to talk a little bit more about you and really how you came into the space and how Invarosoft kind of came about.
Well, thanks again for having me. The story is a long one. It's 22 years. And like many of the software vendors that you see out there, I actually have an MSP, which I started in 2000. I was 22. It wasn't called MSPs in those days. You were essentially just an IT support business. And the RMMs and PSAs and all these terminology, all the tools you can possibly imagine did not exist in those days. And so it's been a wild ride and a great journey. And I'm pleased to say we've managed to scale that MSP. So eNerd's still going in Australia to 50 staff. We finally hit 8 figures this year, which is a bit of a milestone for us, which is great. It's all just been organic growth.
Congratulations.
And yeah, thanks. And look, it's although it did take 22 years, so not exactly a rocket ship, but that's the great thing about the MSP model is that it's reasonably stable. I always say to people, like, there's only 2 things you need to know about the MSP model, and that's sign up more support deals than you lose every year dollar-wise. If you can do that, hey, you'll just keep growing, albeit slowly, but you'll keep growing. So along that journey, we're always a little more enthused to try and be innovative in our approach. Back in the day, we used to have Blackberries and we'd send engineers on site to do audits, and then they'd fill in the audit on their Blackberry and hit save, and it would auto PDF it up and send it to the client as a report. So those types of things. Then we, in about 2010, I was sitting in our boardroom at the time, and we'd finally got a boardroom. Prior to that, it was just some tiny room in a tiny office, so it's not like we had a boardroom the whole time. But we had a quote for 2,000 mouse pads, and I thought, well, I just don't think everybody's going to use these mouse pads. And I just, even if they did, or, I mean, they're going to get worn out and thrown out, and then you don't know who you need to give them to. Essentially, mouse pads with your phone and email on it, which to this day is still the incumbent method that most MSPs interact with their customers. I just thought it was flawed because, again, I didn't think everybody would get one. So therefore, as your outsourced IT team, if they don't know where you are, who you are, it just, to me, that just causes confusion. The other problem we had was we were getting a lot of support requests over the phone, which probably didn't need to be over the phone, and they were calling because they didn't know any other methodology to do it. But then, of course, we were getting a lot of email support, and that's probably the big thing that I over time we realized that it's just not working. Like every ticketing system you have, every PSA you have, essentially works off ticket type, subtype, maybe if you're in ConnectWise, item level. And what's happening is when all those email tickets come in, someone's got to triage it and tag it correctly. Even that at scale is just a waste of time. But mostly the problem we were having was that we weren't getting the perfect ticket. We were getting sort of gobbledygook in the ticket. And so I thought to myself, well, why don't we just build like a digital mouse pad and we'll have like a client portal and all that sort of jazz. So we built an app and a client portal, the app being kind of the launcher so that it's just one click away on the desktop to get to where they need to go. And that was an internal product. And it was very, very successful. And I think what we'd learnt was that we'd solved a behavioral problem firstly. If you want to get people off email, which we did, we cut it out. We said, we're phasing out email. And if it's urgent, call. If it's not urgent, use the app to log the ticket and access the information. And boom, lo and behold, it reduced phone calls by about 50%. It was ridiculous. And then now we to this day, it's still the same. We get 50 to 60% of our workload, and we now get 100 to 150 tickets a day, depending on the day. And so it's a lot of work coming through, and they love it. And I think they love it because it's the whole customer experience piece, and it's ease of access. It's one click away, and that's the behavioral bit. It needs to be an app. Like where anyone watching this would probably agree that the PSA portals don't work. I would argue they're not. Like most people would say, they're hopeless and they don't have enough information. But it's actually more than that. I mean, some of them are okay, but it's actually almost a usability thing. They don't know where to go to get it. It's very hard to bookmark that URL and make sure that they know where it is. But even if you do bookmark it and they know where it is, how do they log in? I don't think many of them have SSO, so it's with Office 365. So it's essentially it's just friction point all the way along. That is why they don't get used, and that is why if you want to change the experience for the customer, it needs to be apps. We now with the Invarosoft piece, and I'll tell you that why we started that, but essentially you've got the button on your desktop, on mobile, in Teams, and giving quick access to get there. So you're just having to train users on that. So it was so successful that we decided I just thought, I don't know why the PSA and RMM tools aren't doing this as the big vendors. I mean, they're all merged now, but effectively nobody seems to be focused on the customer. And I think an MSP business is essentially a customer service business in technology. We are not technology businesses. I mean, Invarosoft now is a technology business because we're building tech, but we're just customer service businesses. And if that's the case, we probably should provide a pretty modern customer experience. And that's what we wanted to do and bring to market, is just get off the mouse pads and stickers, provide a modern experience with apps and client portals. In the client portal, being able to see tickets and Office 365 reports, device reports, service catalogs, knowledge base, then being able to do stuff like live chat and all that sort of stuff. That's what Invarosoft has been brought to the table. So we started in building in about 2015. We launched late 2017 at Autotask Community Live back in the day. If anyone's been there at that Miami event, we were there. And it's just grown from there. And so since those days, the category itself, to be fair, we were a bit confused on how to articulate it. I wasn't quite clear on what to say. But what it's turned into is really we're dominating the customer experience category, and that's what it's now called. But interestingly, where we are now in 2022 is that the market just kept pushing us to build more things under this platform, and competition came to play, and they had more things under the one hood. And so where we are now as a business, interestingly, is that we're calling ourselves a unified customer experience platform, because it's now delivering. It's got the client portal and the CX piece, but we've got VCIO, we've got CSAT, live chat, identity security, and we're building more and more of these tools into the platform. Interestingly, we did a survey at the start of this year, and we said, hey, of all these little tools you're using, the smaller ones, the ones that kind of just around the edges of the MSP space, which ones do you use? And it was quite evenly spread. There wasn't one that sort of stood out. If you think of live chat and engineer bookings and VCIO and these types of things, as opposed to sort of the PSA and RMM, which obviously you have to have one. They're the must have. So you've got this series of arguably nice to have tools around the edge. And then I asked them, well, if you could get most, if not all of these tools at the same quality under the one hood, would you consolidate your stack and to reduce complexity and cost? And I mean, I thought it'd be like 50-50 or, whatever the percentage would be. 94.4% of the respondents said, yes, I want to consolidate stack. I then asked the qualitative question saying, why is that important? You'd assume maybe price. It actually wasn't price. Price was part of it, but it was more the complexity. People, like when you're a small MSP, most MSPs, 80% are 3 million and below, 60% are 1 million and below. So it's not like you've got a million resources and time to manage all this stuff. And that's what they were saying. It's like, if I've got 6 little tools, that's 6 portals I've got to log into. If I lose an engineer, and now I've got to train them on those 6 tools, 6 invoices, 6 of everything. And so that's where, starting out at CX in 2017, 18, and then it's just started to just enhance and merge into some of these other categories. And I think for the better, because a lot of the stuff that we do relates to the customer. So if you think of CSAT, obviously that relates to the customer. VCIO, interestingly, I mean, it probably makes sense to constantly show visibly recommendations and roadmap and these types of things to the customer as well. So it all makes sense and it's all aligned to it. Engineer bookings that we're working on. I mean, that's customer experience. So that's kind of where we are now. So it's been a long journey, but I've lived and breathed the MSP space all that time. I love it. It's been my only full-time job, and done everything wrong, learned lots of things, and I feel like we're starting to see the sort of things you need to do as an MSP, but also from a vendor perspective, I think we're starting to really match up with what the market wants now with tools. You're already seeing it with Kaseya. I mean, that was a pretty big announcement. And if you actually saw his diatribe about it, he was essentially saying, I'm sick of stack creep and bloat, and it makes more sense to have things working together nicely, which independent vendors may not really nail, but if it gets under the one hood, we can really just make it work. Whether they do or they don't, that's another question. But that's the rhetoric there. So hopefully that gives you a quick or somewhat not quick overview of where we've been.
No, yeah. I mean, that's great. It's great information, and there's a lot to unpack, right? And I think that one of the things that stood out to me on when you mentioned on how Invarosoft came to be is user adoption is my question for you. So, a lot of us have, like you said, phone calls into support, email into support. Sometimes we have live chat, and we have so many things going on versus really driving the flow because of customer experience. Did you have any trouble with the user adoption of, hey, we are no longer going to take on email support, you have to go through the app? Was there any resistance with your clients? And if so, what did you do to block those objections? I'm very curious to hear, because I know a lot of us will try to implement something new, and our clients are very either, yep, that's great, or we have to take them kicking and screaming. I'm curious on how that experience was for you.
Great question. Zero pushback. Zero.
Really? Okay.
Zero. here's the thing. This type of product, when we first launched, did get pushback for these reasons that you've just said. And I could never understand it. And but here's something you need to know about me is that I'm a non-technical MSP founder, and my brother was the technical co-founder in that sense. So I was always sales and marketing focused, but more specifically, I'm the annoying user you support. Like, I think in 22 years of running my MSP, I've probably had 4 computers and none of them I set up myself. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know how to consult and advise, and I understand, and I get quite a kick out of talking about firewalls and routers and hot swap drives and all that stuff. Believe me, great consultant, but I'm not technical. And so I come at it from the customer perspective. And it's a challenge that I always say to people is that most MSPs, being technical founders, will think from themselves outwards. When you think from yourself outwards, you'll do a couple of things. You'll spend all your time worrying about your internal stack, your PSA and your RMM. Just go on Reddit or Facebook, and what's the most common question people say? It's like, oh, I think I should swap my tools. I don't even think it matters. Like, make sure it works, but who cares? Like, grow the business and make sales. That's really where it should be. Right. The other thing that they'll think when you're a technical founder is from your perspective. And from your perspective, unfortunately, I just don't think technical people, if you're not thinking customer, therefore you'll immediately go, oh, I don't think the customer will use it. I don't think the customer will use it, meaning me, the technical person, doesn't think the customer will use it. Not a great place to be thinking. And if you go and speak to your senior engineer, oh, I think we should do so. If this is what also happens, you'll get a business owner that is a little, more business orientated in that sense. And they'll go, yeah, customer experience. They'll then go and speak to their senior engineer who doesn't actually like people, and then say, I want to do a customer experience thing. And then that senior engineer, A, goes, I don't get it, because, again, they're not thinking from the customer. And B, they're thinking, that's just another task for me. Like, now I got to do something, so I'm resistant. So the crazy thing is that what I said before, we are customer service businesses. And you get zero pushback. If I was selling this product, which I wish I could, to the end users, we'd be quadruple the size we are now. Because when you present to a customer, hey, I can either give you a mouse pad with our phone and email on it, and an email basically being a blank thing where they go type subject and something in the body of the email, or I'll give you this app. One click, you tell me what you want, screen capture, forms. It'll speed up the whole support process. We can route the ticket to the right team. You can see your tickets, full visibility. I can have your apps there. They're like, yeah. Yes, thanks. That makes way more sense. So that's why you get no pushback, because from a customer's perspective, they are fundamentally used to a modern experience of technology. Think about that user in any of your clients. My clients are the same as yours. No MSPs go, oh, my clients are different. Sorry. No, they're not. Like, I've been in it for 22 years. I've had every client you can possibly have, non-profit to everything. And they all want this. And it's because when they come into the office on their phone and they've checked their Facebook, LinkedIn, I mean, that's about my social, but I guess if you're younger, you're checking all the other ones. Then you check your stocks, the weather, your fitness app, and then you come into your office and you're like, hey, John, like, how do I get IT support? And, oh, I don't know, there's a sticker or something. You got to give them a ring. Or, are you serious? Like, it's like, as MSPs,
and that's a very big conversation
to change, or resistant to delivering a modern experience. And guess what? It's the category starting to pick up now, more competition. And the ones that are doing it, lo and behold, are the ones growing and winning more deals. Like, one of the I talked about the values of why we built it, which was CX generally, and productivity. But the third one, which was the clincher, and everybody whinges about sales, was that I didn't think of it when we built it, but as we were building it, I realized, oh my God, as the salesperson, this is going to be awesome to differentiate our services. And it did. They lap it up. Clients lap it up. It's still getting back to your question. They lap it up, because when you can say to them in that sales meeting, great, so I assume you're looking for a step up in your service experience. And then you say, let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you this beautiful app, this client portal. We're going to be able to, we're going to have training, push notifications, reporting. The client's like, oh yeah, I mean, thank you. That looks amazing. And we do want that information. And then the other person, MSP, comes into the same sales meeting a day later, and then they ask, "Oh, how are you going to interact with us?" And they say, "Oh, well, you'll have a phone number and an email." Who would you pick?
Yep.
Who would you pick?
Yep.
Seriously, like
Yep.
if you were picking
No, yeah.
an MSP, it's why my MSP scaled to where it is, because not accidentally, like we knew what we were doing, but I just didn't realize no one else was doing it.
How powerful it was for
How powerful
that.
it was, because the thing about sales side, I just want to get this out, is that most people don't talk about conversion. They always talk about leads, getting more leads, and pricing and packaging. Leads, pricing, and packaging. But they don't actually talk about conversion. And in a world where, well, you tell me, Paco, I don't know how many leads you get for support deals. There might be 0 to 3 good ones a month.
Mm-hmm.
Probably in that range. I can't imagine you getting 10 amazing support deal leads every month. Otherwise, you'd be you're so busy, right?
Like
so
for us personally, we get
lead
about 10 that we qualify for, and then of those 2 are what we close, right? And those are the 2 that are really good for the 25% or so that we mark. So exactly like you said, I mean, that's really where the conversion becomes, and that's where the focus should be. But I didn't mean
but
to cut you off.
You'll lose some too. Like you'll lose to a competitor. You can't win everything.
Mm-hmm.
But all I'm saying, if you convert at 25%, we convert at 47%. So that essentially doubles up your speed. And I think all we're doing is just painting a better picture of the whole experience. That's all we're doing.
Right.
The customer goes, it just makes more sense. I think I'd rather partner with those guys, because you can't. What most MSPs do essentially is go and think about, if you're watching this and listening to this, think about your support proposal. Do you really talk about the why, the Simon Sinek why, then the how, and you talk about what the engagement will look like? Or do you just go, yeah, we do IT support and here's our price, essentially, as the key themes of your presentation? Are you just basically saying, I can do what you need and here's my price? You need to do more than that if you're going to convince them to come on board, because that's just not enough data points for them to do that. So getting back to your question, 0 pushback. It's just 0 pushback. The only pushback is from an MSP. And the client, if they knew that the MSP could have given them that, they would be disappointed in you as an MSP.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that customer experience is what needs to be stepped forward. I think also employee experience and with the customer experience drives that great experience all around. I mean, just as you mentioned, it clears up so much of that. You have your ticket queues are more organized. You have all these other things that that will help out in the long run. And then the stack consolidation, as you mentioned, is really where the MSPs will say, and IT service providers will save the money, will save the time with being able to educate the customer, the client, on really how to flow with this and really ultimately improving services. Now, does Invarosoft have some type of partner program if they wanted to get involved? What is there a partner program, and what does the partner program offer to those that do want to join?
Well, obviously, it's a SaaS platform, so it's a month-to-month subscription, so super easy. We want to earn your business every month, and we're happy with that. And so we do have certain deals that we can offer. So if anybody's watching this podcast and video, then reach out to us and let us know that you watched it. Then we can provide you a great deal there. But essentially, it's month to month. You can pick your subscription start date, so there's really no risk. The way we work is quite. We've finally figured out how to make it easy for you guys as the MSPs considering tools. One of the things when you consider tools is like, oh my God, I've got to fiddle with it and trial with it. But then there's like, you go to an event, there's 6 vendors chasing you down like a dog. So what we've tried to do is simplify the whole process for you and for us. And so how it works is you book a demo, and if you think, great, I like what I see, you then book another meeting with us to set up the trial. It's about 30 minutes, and we've templatized it all. So in a click of buttons, all we're doing in that setup is just connecting your PSA, which takes a few minutes, connecting the Azure AD integration, so you can start to see reporting and those sorts of things, and test out the Teams app, etc. And because we templatize it, things like your client portal menu, your app buttons, and service catalogs and training, and it's all set up. So in about 30 minutes, you can just play with it. You've done really not much work, and then we book a third meeting just to say, what do you want to do? So that's it. So it's a 3-step process. And along that journey, if you decide to go ahead, of course, we have the onboarding is just to complete that setup and make sure you're successful in that regard. With the VCIO side of things, we'll really help you get that set up and plugged in and ready to go. And because we do it a bit differently, our VCO is more customer focused and sales focused. One of the things I love a lot of the passion a lot of the VCO vendors are putting in place in QBRs. I'm not a big fan of the QBR. I don't think every client actually needs a QBR. I don't think that's a secret. You see clients don't. I mean, if they're not growing, I don't know why you need to see them every quarter to talk about their roadmap. But what we do is focus and help you on the sales side. If you're going to do any sort of recommendations to a client, I'm sorry, that's a sales process, because anything you recommend, there's a dollar attached to it. And we help with laying out a good, better, best presentation to the customer to get them to make a buying decision faster, so that you can just get it done, solve the problems and move on. Most people present and then they go, oh, I'll come back to you with a quote. And then you have a quote and then the client's like, I don't know. So it's a bit convoluted and it just slows down the whole process. So things like that.
Speaking to that, do you have a partner enablement program where you would help those that are enrolled with Invarosoft on how to really get this?
Well, it's part of our onboarding. We've built this platform so templatized and so simple that, quite frankly, you don't need to go through a university. You just go through onboarding and training, and then and you have the availability of your success team at any time to just book a meeting in. And I'm also available as well as part of Invarosoft. It's my full-time gig now, and the MSP has its own management team. So if people are listening to this and they're like, I want to learn how Jamie sells, and I want to learn how to do that as an existing Invarosoft partner in that sense, then we'll give you all that juicy information on how to succeed and nail it.
Perfect. Well, Jamie, I can't believe we're almost at the end of the 30 minutes. I think we need to bring you back. One, I would really love to pick your brain on the sales and the marketing, as you mentioned, because I think that's where a lot of people tend to struggle and confuse the two, right? I think a lot of people believe marketing is sales and sales is marketing, and the two are so different, in my opinion, for that. So what I would say is we can go ahead and go back and bring you back on, have a learning lab possibly for our online community. But if there are those that want to, as I mentioned, reach out to you, learn more about the product, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Just reach out via the website invarosoft.com, INVAROSOFT.com, and or sales@invarosoft.com, and you can sign up and for a free trial there if you want to. But if you do, we'll just go through that 3-step process. So reach out. I'll see all those emails. Just let me know you're on this podcast or watched it. And if you have any questions, you'll probably get a pretty quick response from me. I love it.
Very cool. So again, Jamie, really appreciate you coming out and coming out in the morning. What's your time over there? Is it about an hour ahead?
I'm in your time zone. I'm in Central.
Oh, my time zone. Okay.
9:30.
Okay. Perfect. So I have a few employees over in Venezuela and Argentina as well. So we have all in the Latin America there. So, but no, appreciate you taking the time this morning to share about Invarosoft. We definitely want to have you come back. As I mentioned, for our specific online community for a learning lab. For those that are interested in joining our online community, it's pretty simple. Head over to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. Feel free to support the show there, and then you'll be able to gain access to our online community, which is currently hosted on Facebook, along with some other early access to discount codes and things going on with our in-person events and exclusive viewing of the learning labs that we have as well. So really appreciate those that have supported us thus far. And we will make sure to ensure that we continue to bring this great content every Tuesday and Thursday on the video podcast. So feel free to like, subscribe, hit the bell wherever they are in your particular platform. And if you feel like you want to take us on the go and video is not your thing, we're on every podcatcher. Most importantly and most popularly, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Once again, we thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate those listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.